Part 1. The brutal hook in reality SLP. Stop explaining yourself. That's the first problem. You talk too much. You justify too much. You try to make weak people understand strong decisions. Listen carefully. Winners don't explain. Losers over-explain. That if you feel the need to tell everyone what you're about to do, you're already unsure. Silence isn't politeness. Silence is power. Right now, you're stuck. Not because you're unlucky. Not because life is unfair, that you're stuck because you keep asking for permission. Permission to work late. Permission to say no. Permission to change. Permission to become someone they won't recognize. You don't need approval. You need discipline. Every time you explain yourself, you lower your position. You put yourself on trial in front of people who have no vision, no plan, no courage. Why are you defending a future theory too scared to chase? Let me tell you something brutal. If they understood you, you wouldn't be ahead. That if they supported you, you wouldn't be dangerous. Most people don't want to see you win. They want to see you stay familiar. Same habits, same excuses, same level. And you keep talking, trying to be liked, trying to be understood. That's why nothing is changing. Rehook. If you need them to clap, you're not built to lead. In line, silence is the first sign of strength. Part 2. Why talking keeps you. Every explanation is a leak. Energy leak. Focus leak. Confidence leak. You announce goals too early. You share plans with the wrong people. You look for validation instead of execution. And when they question you, you hesitate. When they doubt you, you slow down. When they laugh, you shrink. Understand this. The moment you explain, you give them control. Now their opinion matters. Now their doubt lives in your head. Now you start adjusting your path. That's how dreams die. Not from failure, from noise. Noise from people who never built anything. They ask questions not to understand, but to feel superior. They don't need answers. They need reassurance that you won't outgrow them. And you fall for it. You explain your grind, your sleep schedule, your discipline, your isolation. You say, I'm just focused right now. Stop saying that. Focus doesn't need a press release. Real progress is quiet. Real growth is lonely. Real discipline doesn't talk. If you're always explaining, you're still emotionally attached to their opinion, and attachment is weakness. You want success? Detach. Move without announcing. Work without applause. Build without witnesses. Rehook. If they know your next move, you already moved wrong. In line. Quiet effort creates loud results. Part 3. Pain, loneliness, and the price of silence has a cost. Loneliness, boredom, misunderstanding. People will assume you changed it. They'll say you're acting different. Good. Different is the goal. You will miss events. You will miss conversations. You will miss comfort. And nobody will understand why. That's the test. Can you stay locked in without being celebrated? Can you grind in the dark without updates, likes, or praise? Because the truth is, most people don't quit because it's hard. They quit because it's quiet. In 01 checking on them. In 01 motivating them. In 01 validating the sacrifice. Just you. With discipline. And the clock. That's where winners are born. In rooms where nobody sees them. On nights nobody knows about. Through routines nobody respects. You think elites are loud? No, they're obsessed. They don't explain their absence. They invest it. They don't argue with doubters. They outgrow them. Pain is part of the price. Silence is part of the process. If you can't handle being misunderstood, you're not ready to be great. Rehook. Lonely doesn't mean lost. It means focused. In line. Isolation is preparation. Part 4. Destroying fear and judgment. Let's be honest that you're not scared of failure, that you're scared of people watching you. You're scared of judgment, that of being talked about, that of being laughed at. You explain. You soften your ambition. You make yourself smaller. That ends now. Judgment is a tax on people who dare. If you avoid it, you avoid growth. You don't need everyone to believe. You need to believe enough to stay silent. Here's the mindset shift. Their opinions don't follow you to the future. Their comments don't pay your bills. Their laughter doesn't build your life. Why are you carrying it? Strong minds don't argue. They execute. You don't respond to disrespect with words. You respond with results. Let them doubt. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Silence drives them crazy because silence means confidence. And confidence threatens people who live in excuses. Rehook. The louder they get, the quieter you move. In line. Results speak fluently. Part 5. Identity shift. You are not NOR, but you need to accept this. You are not normal. Normal explains. Normal complains. Normal seeks approval that you're building something abnormal. Different standards, different habits, different future that requires a new identity. You don't announce moves. You don't debate discipline. You don't negotiate with comfort. You act. You repeat. You improve. Silence becomes your default. Not because you're secretive, but because you're serious. You don't need witnesses. You need consistency. Every time you stay quiet, you strengthen your identity. Every time you don't explain, you reinforce self-trust. This is who you are now. Someone who moves alone. Someone who doesn't flinch. Someone who lets outcomes speak. Rehook. If you're becoming elite, expect confusion. In line. Different paths require different behavior. Part 6. Elite lock in and final mindset hammerlock this in. From today forward, less talking. More building. NO announcements. NO defending. NO convincing. You don't need to prove anything to people who quit on themselves. Silence keeps you sharp. Silence keeps you dangerous. While they talk, you train. While they doubt, you repeat. While they explain, you execute. And one day they'll ask how you did it. Don't answer. Let your life respond. Final rehook. If they don't see you coming, you're doing it right. Final line. Repeatable winners move in silence. Winners move in silence. Winners move in silence. Part 2. Why talking keeps you barely every time you explain yourself. You lose leverage. You think you're being clear. You think you're being mature. You think you're helping people understand you. You're not. You're weakening your position. Talking feels productive. IT feels like movement. IT feels like progress. But it's fake progress. Explaining is what people doubt in. They're not confident enough to let results arrive. Look at your life. You talk about plans. You talk about goals. You talk about what you're about to do. And then nothing changes because talking steals urgency. The brain gets reward before the work is done. You tell people your goals. They nod. They react. They give opinions. Your mind feels accomplished, but nothing is built. That's why you stay broke. Not just financially, mentally, because you spend energy explaining instead of executing. Here's the truth nobody tells you. People don't question you because they're curious. They question you because they're uncomfortable. Your ambition exposes their laziness. Your discipline highlights their excuses. They poke holes. They challenge your plan. They ask why again and again. Not to help you slow you down. And when you answer them, you let them into your head. Now their doubt becomes your doubt. Now their fear becomes your hesitation. That's how momentum dies. Real builders don't explain. They disappear. They go quiet. They get busy. They let silence handle the conversation because silence keeps pressure on the mission. NO opinions. NO distractions. NO emotional weight. Just worked out. If you need people to understand your grind, you're not grinding hard enough. If you need to explain your absence, you're still attached to comfort. And attachment is expensive. Every word you don't say is energy saved. Every explanation you avoid is focus protected. You don't owe clarity to people who aren't building anything. You owe execution to yourself. Rehook. If you keep explaining, you're leaking power. In line. Quiet effort creates loud results. Part 3. pain, loneliness. And the price of silence is not peaceful. Silence is heavy. Nobody warns you about that part. When you stop explaining, people stop checking on you. When you stop talking, you stop getting invited. When you stop announcing, you become invisible. Good, that's the price. You think success feels good in the beginning. No, it feels empty. It feels boring. It feels lonely. And applause. And encouragement. And reassurance. Just days that look the same. Just nights that stretch long. Just work that nobody notices. This is where most people break. Not because it's hard, but because it's quiet. They miss attention. They miss being seen. They miss feeling important. They talk again. They post again. They explain again. And they lose momentum. Listen carefully. Loneliness is not punishment, it's separation, it's life pulling you away from average routines and weak circles. Boredom is not a problem, it's proof you remove distractions. Sacrifice is not loss, it's exchange. You're trading comfort for control. While others are laughing, you're repeating. While others are relaxing, you're refining. While others are explaining their dreams, you're building them. And nobody cares, that's the gift. Because when nobody is watching, you stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop seeking approval. You become dangerous. Silence forces you to face yourself. Hype, motivation, external push. Just discipline. If you can survive this phase, you separate permanently. Most people want the reward without the isolation. They want progress without disappearing. That's not how it works. Growth happens in rooms where nobody claps. Strength is built in seasons where nobody understands you. If you feel alone right now, don't panic. IT means you're early. Rehook. Lonely doesn't mean lost. It means focused. In line. Isolation is preparation. Part 4. Destroying fear and judgment. Let's strip the lie. You don't fear failure. You fear being seen before you win. You fear the looks, the comments, the whispers. You fear trying while they're watching. You explain. You soften your moves. You lower your standards. Not because you want to, but because you want to be accepted. Acceptance is expensive. IT costs you momentum. IT costs you edge. IT costs you time. Understand this clearly. Judgment is not. Danger. It's noise. And noise only affects you if you listen. People judge what they don't understand. They mock what they don't have the courage to attempt. Your silence scares them. Because silence means certainty. When you stop defending yourself, you stop fighting ghosts. You don't need to respond. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to prove anything. Results handle disrespect better than words ever will. Fear disappears when action becomes routine. Not when confidence appears. Not when motivation hits. When discipline becomes boring. That's the shift. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop caring. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're focused. Judgment loses power when you outgrow the room. And here's the truth. The people judging you now won't be present when you break through. They don't walk with you into the future. Why are you letting them slow you down today? Silence cuts fear at the root. Debate. Defense. Delay. Just movement. Rehook. The louder they doubt, the quieter you execute. In line. Results don't argue. Part 5. Identity shift. You are not NOL at some point. You have to accept this truth. You are not built like them. Normal people explain. Normal people seek comfort. Normal people need approval to move. That's not you anymore. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't need understanding. You need standards. This is an identity decision. You either see yourself as someone who reacts or someone who executes. Elites don't wait for confidence. They move without it. They don't announce discipline. They live it. They don't explain absence. They invest it. Your silence is not weakness, it's alignment. Alignment between who you say you are and what you do daily. When your actions match your vision, Words become unnecessary. You stop chasing validation because your identity is stable. You know who you are even when nobody sees it. That's rare. Most people collapse without attention. They don't know how to move without feedback. You do. You train. When it's boring, you repeat when it's lonely. You stay locked in when it's quiet. That's not normal behavior. That's elite behavior. And elite behavior requires distance. Distance from noise. Distance from opinions. Distance from average thinking. And if people don't recognize you anymore, you're evolving. If they say you changed, you did that on purpose. Rehook. If you fit in everywhere, you're not growing. In line. Different identity. Different standards. Elite lock-in. Silence AS is the final separation. Not motivation. Not hype. Not emotion. The separation. By the time someone reaches this point, they're no longer asking if they should change. They're deciding how far they are willing to go. And most people stop here. Because what comes next is not exciting, that it's not loud, that it's not impressive to outsiders, that it's silent dominance. Silence is where weak people panic, because silence removes feedback. Silence removes validation. Silence removes comfort. Silence forces you to face yourself with no distractions, and most people cannot survive that. They need noise. They need opinions. They need reactions to feel alive. You don't. Not anymore to AT this stage. You stop asking for permission internally. That's the real shift. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel confident. You don't need to feel supported. You move because that's who you are now. This is not about goals anymore. Goals are temporary. Identity is permanent. You're no longer trying to become disciplined. You are disciplined. You're no longer trying to be focused. You're focused. You are no longer trying to stop explaining yourself. You don't explain yourself. And that changes everything. Because explanations come from insecurity. They come from a need to be understood, the need to be accepted, the need to stay connected to people who are comfortable staying average. When you stop explaining, you break emotional contracts, contracts that say, I need you to approve my choices. I need you to understand my grind. I need you to stay comfortable with my growth. Those contracts were invisible, but they controlled you. Silence tears them up. Now people don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you're building. They don't know where you're going. And that's intentional, because clarity is earned, not given to AT this level. You don't move to be seen. You move to be effective. You don't speak to be heard. You speak only when it changes outcomes. Most people talk to release anxiety. You act to build momentum. That's the difference. Silence sharpens you. IT removes the habit of reacting. IT removes the addiction to response. IT removes the urge to defend. Now every action is deliberate. Every choice is intentional. You wake up with fewer words and more standards, and standards don't negotiate. From here on, you stop announcing anything and oh more, I'm about to. No more, I'm planning. No more, I'm thinking of. Those phrases belong to people who are still unsure. You don't announce movement. You become movement. You let time reveal your discipline. You let consistency explain your absence. You let results handle every conversation you refuse to have. This is where patience becomes a weapon. Because while others are rushing to be noticed, you are building leverage quietly, and leverage doesn't rush. Leverage waits. IT compounds. IT stacks. IT grows when nobody is watching. That's why silence feels uncomfortable at first, because there is no instant reward. In dopamine, HIT. In applause. In reassurance. Just work. Just repetition. Just days that look boring from the outside. And that boredom is what filters people out. Because most people need excitement to stay committed. You don't. You need standards. Now you move with a different energy. You don't rush conversations. You don't chase responses. You don't react emotionally. You observe. You execute. You adjust privately. This is composure, and composure is power. When you don't react, you control the frame. When you don't explain, you control the narrative. When you don't respond, you force people to project their own insecurities. That's why silence feels threatening to weak minds. Because weak minds need clarity to feel safe. You don't exist to make them feel safe. You exist to build something undeniable. Undeniable doesn't ask for belief that IT arrives, that IT stands. IT forces acknowledgement without conversation, that's the goal. Not attention. Authority. Authority is earned in silence. Nobody gives it to you. You don't claim it. You build it when nobody is looking. Then one day it's obvious, and by then, explanations are unnecessary. People don't ask how you did it because they're curious. They ask because they regret not doing it themselves. And that's not your problem. You don't owe access to your process. You don't owe clarity about your discipline. You don't owe emotional availability to people who didn't walk the path with you. Your responsibility is not to explain. Your responsibility is to execute. From this point forward, you simplify everything. Less talking, less reacting, less emotional investment, more structure, more repetition, more patience. You stop leaking energy into arguments that don't move your life forward. You stop justifying choices that are aligned with your future. You stop trying to sound reasonable to unreasonable standards. Because elite standards are never reasonable to average minds. They require sacrifice. They require isolation. They require discomfort. And most people avoid those at all costs. You don't. You lean into them. Because discomfort is familiar now. Silence is familiar now. Loneliness doesn't scare you anymore. You understand it. Loneliness is not absence, that it's focus, that it's clarity, that it's space to build without interference. This is where long-term dominance is built. Not in bursts. Not in moments that I end quiet years of discipline. You don't rush the process because you understand leverage. You don't need to prove urgency. You need to preserve consistency. So you protect your silence. You protect your routines. You protect your energy. You stop explaining why you're unavailable. You stop apologizing for being focused. You stop justifying your standards because standards don't apologize. They filter. They separate. They define who stays and who fades. And you accept that some people will fade, not because you hate them, but because you chose growth. This is maturity, not emotional maturity, strategic maturity, the understanding that not everyone can come with you, and not everyone deserves access to you. Silence makes that separation clean. No arguments, no drama, no explanations, just distance. And distance creates clarity. Clarity creates momentum. Momentum creates results. This is the chain. And now you're locked into it. From here on, your behavior speaks first. A discipline introduces you. Your consistency announces you. Your results defend you. You don't enter rooms trying to be understood. You enter rooms already proven that that's the difference, that that's the shift, that that's the final lock-in. You're no longer building loudly. You're no longer growing publicly. You're no longer seeking recognition. You're stacking proof, and proof takes time. So you move patiently. You move quietly. You move relentlessly. And one day, without warning, without announcement, without explanation, you arrive. And when they finally notice, when they finally ask, when they finally want answers, you won't need to say anything. Because your life will already have spoken. Final rehook. If nobody knows what you're building it right. Final mindset line. Repeatable winners move in silence. Winners move in silence. Winners move in silence.